Imagine a quiet room filled with memories of music and friendship. Joe Esposito sits alone at 90 years old, ready to share a secret he has kept for decades. He was Elvis Presley's closest friend and the only person with him during his final moments. Now, for the first time ever, Joe is about to reveal what Elvis whispered to him on his deathbed. This confession is something nobody has ever heard before. Get ready to discover the truth behind the legend. What did Elvis say before he left this world? The answer will shock you and change everything. Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. Joe Esposito was not just a friend to Elvis Presley. He was more like a brother. Their story began in the army when both young men were serving their country. From the very first meeting, Joe and Elvis felt a strong connection. They laughed together, shared secrets, and supported each other through good times and bad. When Elvis became a superstar, he did not forget Joe. Instead, he brought Joe into his inner circle, making him his road manager and trusted companion. Joe was always there, whether Elvis was performing on stage, recording in the studio, or relaxing at home in Graceland. People often called Joe the man behind the king. He handled Elvis's schedule, made travel plans, and even helped with personal problems. Joe saw the real Elvis, not just the famous singer everyone else knew. He saw Elvis's kindness, his struggles, and his dreams. Joe was there during Elvis's happiest moments, like when he got married or when his daughter Lisa Marie was born. He was also there during the hard times, when Elvis felt lonely or tired from fame. Joe never left his side. Over the years, Joe became a part of the Presley family. He was trusted with secrets and private moments that no one else knew about. Elvis would often talk to Joe late at night, sharing his worries and hopes. Joe listened and gave advice, always wanting the best for his friend. Their bond was unbreakable. Now, at 90 years old, Joe looks back on a lifetime of memories. He remembers the laughter, the music, and the adventures they shared. But he also remembers the pain of losing his best friend. For many years, Joe kept Elvis's final words a secret, out of respect and love. But now, he feels it is time to share the truth with the world so everyone can understand the real Elvis Presley. The final days of Elvis Presley were filled with both sadness and mystery. Elvis was living at his famous home called Graceland in Memphis. He was not just a superstar, but also a man who was tired and struggling with many problems. In those last days, Elvis's health was getting worse. He was not as strong as before. He often felt weak and sometimes could not sleep at night. People around him noticed that he was not the same happy and energetic Elvis they once knew. He spent more time alone in his room, thinking about his life and the choices he had made. The media was always watching Elvis. Newspapers and magazines wrote stories about his health and his private life. Fans stood outside Graceland hoping to see him, but Elvis rarely came out. He was under a lot of pressure and felt the weight of being famous. Even though he was surrounded by people, Elvis sometimes felt very lonely. He missed the simple days before he became a legend. Joe Esposito was one of the few people Elvis trusted during this difficult time. Joe stayed close, making sure Elvis had everything he needed and trying to lift his spirits. As the days passed, the atmosphere in Graceland became more serious. Family members and close friends worried about Elvis. They wanted to help him, but sometimes it seemed like nothing could make him feel better. Elvis talked to Joe about his fears and regrets. He wondered if he had made the right choices in life. He also worried about his daughter and his legacy. The night before Elvis died, Joe noticed that Elvis was quieter than usual. There was a feeling of sadness in the air. No one knew that these would be the last moments of the king of rock and roll. Joe was there, watching over his friend, not knowing that soon he would hear a confession that would change everything. The night before Elvis Presley died was filled with a strange and heavy feeling. Graceland was quiet, and the usual laughter and music were missing. Joe Esposito, Elvis's closest friend, could sense that something was different. He had seen Elvis go through many ups and downs, but this night felt special and serious. Elvis was not his usual self. He seemed tired, both in his body and in his heart. He moved slowly and spoke softly, as if he was carrying a heavy weight inside him. Joe stayed close to Elvis that night, making sure he was comfortable and had everything he needed. They talked for a while, but Elvis was not very talkative. He looked thoughtful, sometimes staring at the walls or out the window, lost in his own world. Joe could see the sadness in Elvis's eyes. He knew his friend was thinking about his life, his mistakes, and the things he wished he could change. The room was filled with memories, photos of family, gold records on the walls, and gifts from fans. But none of these things seemed to make Elvis happy that night. As the night grew darker, Elvis asked Joe to sit with him. There was a long silence between them. Joe did not want to push Elvis to talk, so he just waited patiently. Finally, Elvis turned to Joe and spoke in a quiet voice. He said he had something important to share, something he had never told anyone before. Joe felt his heart beat faster. He knew this was a serious moment, maybe the most important conversation they would ever have. Elvis took a deep breath and began to speak. His words were slow and careful, as if he wanted to make sure Joe understood every word. Joe listened closely, feeling a mix of sadness and surprise. He realized that Elvis was sharing his deepest secret, something he had kept hidden for many years. Joe felt honored that Elvis trusted him with this confession. He promised to keep it safe, not knowing that soon Elvis would be gone forever. That night, in the quiet of Graceland, a secret was shared that would change how the world remembers Elvis Presley. Joe Esposito sat in silence as Elvis Presley began to share his secret. The room felt heavy, and Joe could feel his own heart beating faster. He had always known that Elvis carried many burdens, but he never expected to hear something so personal and deep. Elvis's voice was soft and shaky, showing how much this confession meant to him. He told Joe about a regret that had haunted him for years. It was not about fame or money. It was about the people he loved and the choices he had made. Elvis said he wished he had spent more time with his family, especially his daughter Lisa Marie. He felt that his busy life and career had kept him away from the people who mattered most. Joe listened carefully, feeling both sad and surprised. He had seen Elvis with his family many times, but he never realized how much Elvis missed out on simple moments. Elvis admitted that he sometimes felt lonely, even when he was surrounded by fans and friends. He said that being the king of rock and roll was a great honor, but it also came with a heavy price. He could not live a normal life or enjoy the small things that most people take for granted. This was the secret that Elvis had kept hidden from the world. Joe was shocked by the honesty in Elvis's words. He realized that behind the fame and the music, Elvis was just a man with hopes, fears, and regrets. Joe felt a deep sense of responsibility to keep this confession safe. He promised Elvis that he would never share it unless he felt the world was ready to understand the real Elvis Presley. The moment was emotional, and both men had tears in their eyes. Joe knew that this was not just a secret, but a message for everyone who loved Elvis. This shocking revelation changed the way Joe saw his friend. He understood that Elvis wanted to be remembered not just as a superstar, but as a human being who loved deeply and made mistakes. Joe carried this secret in his heart for many years, knowing that one day the world would need to hear the truth about Elvis's final confession. After many years of keeping Elvis Presley's secret, Joe Esposito finally decided it was time to share the truth with the world. He knew that fans everywhere wanted to know what really happened in those final moments. Joe felt nervous, but also relieved, because he believed that Elvis's real story needed to be told. He sat down for an interview, his hands shaking a little as he remembered that night at Graceland. Joe spoke slowly and clearly, wanting everyone to understand the importance of what he was about to reveal. Joe explained that Elvis's deathbed confession was not about money, fame, or any scandal. It was about love and regret. Elvis had told Joe that he wished he could go back and live a simple life. He missed the days before he was famous, when he could walk down the street, talk to neighbors, and spend time with his family without being chased by cameras. Elvis said he felt trapped by his own success. He loved his fans, but he sometimes wished he could just be a regular person again. This was the secret that Elvis had kept hidden from everyone, even those closest to him. When Joe shared this confession, people were shocked. Fans who had always seen Elvis as a larger-than-life superstar now saw him as a real person with real feelings. Some cried when they heard the story, while others felt a new respect for Elvis. Music experts and family members also reacted with surprise and emotion. They realized that Elvis's greatest wish was not for more fame or fortune, but for a chance to live a normal, happy life. Joe's words touched the hearts of millions. He explained that Elvis wanted his fans to remember him not just for his music, but for his kindness and his love for people. The secret changed the way the world saw Elvis Presley. He was no longer just the king of rock and roll. He was a man who loved deeply, felt pain, and wished for simple happiness. Joe felt proud to finally share this truth, knowing it would help people understand the real Elvis, the man behind the legend. After Joe Esposito revealed Elvis Presley's secret, everything changed for him and for Elvis's fans around the world. Joe felt a mix of emotions. He was relieved that he had finally shared the truth, but he was also nervous about how people would react. For so many years, he had carried this secret in his heart, protecting it out of respect for his best friend. Now, as people everywhere learned about Elvis's true feelings, Joe hoped they would understand why he waited so long to speak. He wanted everyone to see Elvis as a real person, not just a superstar. Fans from all over the world started to send messages to Joe. Some thanked him for being brave enough to tell the story. Others shared their own feelings of regret and love for their families, saying that Elvis's confession made them think about their own lives. Many people said they felt closer to Elvis than ever before. They realized that even someone as famous as Elvis could feel lonely and wish for a simple life. This new understanding brought fans together, creating a sense of community and support. Elvis' family also reacted to the news. Some were surprised, while others said they always knew Elvis had a gentle and caring heart. They appreciated Joe's honesty and the way he respected Elvis's memory. Music experts and historians began to talk about Elvis in a new way. They wrote articles and made documentaries about his life, focusing not just on his music, but also on his struggles and dreams. The world started to see Elvis as Moses, more than just the king of rock and roll. He became a symbol of hope, showing that it is okay to have regrets and to wish for happiness. For Joe, sharing the secret was a way to honor his friend. He felt that he had done the right thing by telling the world about Elvis's final wish. Joe's message to fans was simple. Remember Elvis for his kindness, his love, and his humanity. He wanted people to know that behind the legend was a man who cared deeply about others. In the end, Joe found peace, knowing he had helped the world understand the real Elvis Presley. As the story comes to an end, the world is left with a new image of Elvis Presley. No longer just a superstar on stage, he is now remembered as a real person with hopes, dreams, and regrets. Joe Esposito's decision to share Elvis's final confession has touched millions of hearts. People everywhere are talking about the king of rock and roll in a different way. They see him not just as a legend, but as a man who wanted love, happiness, and a simple life. The truth has brought fans closer to Elvis, making his memory even more special. In the final moments of this story, Joe Esposito sits quietly, thinking about his best friend. He remembers the laughter, the music, and the adventures they shared. He also remembers the pain of losing Elvis and the heavy secret he carried for so many years. Now, after telling the world about Elvis's last words, Joe feels a sense of peace. He knows he has honored his friend's memory in the best way possible. Joe's eyes fill with tears, but there is also a gentle smile on his face. He is proud to have been part of Elvis's life and to have shared his story. As Elvis music plays softly in the background, fans everywhere light candles, play his songs, and share their favorite memories. The world comes together to celebrate not just the king, but the man behind the music. People talk about the importance of family, love, and being true to yourself. They remember that even the biggest stars can feel lonely and wish for simple things. Elvis's confession has become a lesson for everyone, Rikirs, reminding us to cherish the people we love and to never take happiness for granted. The story ends with a message of hope. Joe Esposito's voice is heard one last time saying, "The king may be gone, but his spirit lives on in every heart he touched." Remember Elvis not just for his fame, but for his kindness and his dreams. As the screen fades to black, Elvis's voice echoes, leaving the world with a feeling of love, understanding, and respect for the man who changed music forever.